unfold.
So what really happens when we die? For centuries, that question was for philosophers and priests, but not anymore. Today, science is stepping in, conducting what's basically a forensic investigation into the final moments of our consciousness. And to even begin to understand it, we have to tear down our most basic assumption about what death even is.
First things first, you have to throw out the old idea of death as a switch, flipping from on to off. It's not like that. Thanks to modern medicine, things like CPR, we now know that death is actually a biological gray zone. It's a process, one that can unfold over minutes or even hours after the heart stops beating.
And that, right there, leads to the most profound question of all. If the body is in this gray zone, what's happening in the mind? Is it just shutting down like a computer powering off? Or is something else going on entirely? This is the mystery we're going to dig into.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to be on the same page with our language. Science is actually moving past some of the old kind of vague terms and creating a whole new framework to study this frontier.
So here's the crucial point. We're moving from the term near-death experience, or NDE, to recalled experience of death, or RED. And look, this isn't just about semantics. Think about it. A person in cardiac arrest isn't near death. By all clinical standards, they are dead. The new term, RED, which was defined by a huge scientific consensus in 2022, lets researchers be really precise about studying the memories people bring back from that.
So what happens when you actually start analyzing these recalled experiences of death? Well, you find something truly remarkable. Across different cultures, different religions, even across time, a surprisingly consistent story emerges. We can think of it as a kind of universal script.
And this script seems to have 5 main parts. It usually starts with a sense of separation, this feeling of floating out of your own body. That's followed by a journey, moving through a dark space like a tunnel toward a bright light. Then people often describe entering this brilliant realm where they sometimes meet loved ones who've already passed. And then comes the life review, and people are clear this isn't just remembering things, it's a full re-experiencing of their entire life. And finally, there's this sense of reaching a boundary, a point of no return, where a choice is made to come back.
This brings us to probably the most famous case in this entire field, a woman named Pam Reynolds. She had a classic RED during a very radical brain surgery, and her description of the surgical saw, well, it's so specific, so weirdly accurate that it became a cornerstone for all this research.
Her case is so powerful because of the extreme medical state she was in. It was a procedure called standstill. I mean, get this. Her body was cooled to just 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Her heart was stopped, she wasn't breathing, and all the blood was drained from her head. They even verified her brainstem was silent. She was, for all intents and purposes, dead.
And yet, from that state, she reported hearing conversations and describing that surgical saw with uncanny accuracy. The anomaly seems impossible, right? The rebuttal from skeptics is, well, maybe she heard things before her heart fully stopped. It's a phenomenon called anesthesia awareness, and then her brain just pieced together the visual later. And right there, that's the whole debate in a nutshell.
So what's the mainstream scientific explanation for all this? The prevailing theory is pretty straightforward. If consciousness isn't actually leaving the body, then these incredible experiences have to be a product of the brain's final chaotic moments, a kind of hallucination.
And 2 mechanisms are really key here. First, there's cerebral hypoxia. Basically, the brain is starved of oxygen. As it starts to fail, your peripheral vision is the first to go, which creates that classic tunnel effect. At the exact same time, the brain's internal brakes, the systems that normally filter our thoughts and memories, they fail too. That's called cortical disinhibition. And it could cause a lifetime of memories to just flood your consciousness all at once. And there's your life review.
Another really popular theory involves DMT, a super powerful psychedelic molecule that's naturally found in the body. The idea goes that the brain releases a massive flood of it right at the moment of death. And yeah, there are some big overlaps with the NDEs, but there are also some key differences. DMT trips are often described as way more chaotic, more alien, and they almost never have that deeply personal, structured life review that's so central to the NDE.
And there are other models that offer compelling pieces of the puzzle. For example, the anesthetic ketamine can reliably produce out-of-body sensations. It does this by disrupting the part of your brain that tells you where your self is located in space. Then you've got the temporal lobes, sometimes called the God spot,
which, if they get overstimulated during the dying process, can create these overwhelming feelings of spiritual meaning and cosmic connection.
Okay, so the case seems pretty straightforward. The dying brain is failing, it's hallucinating, end of story, right? Well, what if that's not the whole story? Recent discoveries have introduced a fascinating paradox, suggesting that maybe the dying brain isn't failing at all.
It all started back in 2013. Scientists studying dying rats found something they did not expect: a massive, highly organized burst of gamma brainwaves, a key signature of consciousness after the heart had stopped. Then, fast forward to 2023, and a human study confirmed the exact same thing. The implication here is just staggering. The dying brain isn't shutting down, it's lighting up with hyperactive, highly organized activity.
And the most shocking part of this discovery? It's the sheer scale of this surge. In that brief window right after the heart stops, the electrical markers that we associate with conscious thought weren't just present, they were measured to be higher than in a normal, healthy waking state. Let that sink in for a second.
And this just drives the point home visually. The very brain activity that we link to lucid, conscious experience can actually spike in the moments after clinical death. This gives us a really powerful neurological reason for why so many people describe these experiences as feeling more real than real.
Okay, so the brain is clearly active. We've established that. But can consciousness actually perceive the world from outside the body? The largest study of its kind, called the AWARE-2 study, set out to find some definitive proof, one way or the other.
The scale of this thing was just massive. Across 25 hospitals, researchers monitored 567 patients while they were in cardiac arrest. And here's the clever part. In the resuscitation rooms, they put tablets with hidden images on high shelves, where they were only visible from a vantage point up near the ceiling. It was the ultimate test to see if anyone having an out-of-body experience could see them.
And the result? Zero. Not a single person who survived and reported floating out of their body was able to identify the hidden image. This was a huge blow to the idea that consciousness literally leaves the body and can look down on the physical world.
But here's the twist. While the study found zero evidence of external perception, it found incredibly powerful evidence of internal conscious experience. EEG monitors showed that nearly 40% of the patients had spikes of brain activity consistent with consciousness, some for as long as an hour into CPR. So the lucid interval is real, even if we can't prove we have floating eyes.
So, where does all this leave us? We've got a brain that's paradoxically hyperactive at the point of death, creating these incredibly lucid internal states, but with absolutely no proof that it can perceive the outside world. This whole thing forces us to confront the hardest question of all, about the nature of consciousness itself. This brings the entire debate down to two big competing ideas. The first is the production theory. It says the brain creates consciousness, kind of like a generator makes electricity. When the generator breaks, the lights go out. End of story. But the transmission theory suggests the brain is more like a TV or a radio. It receives a signal of consciousness that exists outside of it. When the TV breaks, the broadcast signal is still there.
The science of the dying experience doesn't give us the final answer. But man, does it sharpen the question. It forces us to ask, what is the true relationship between our mind and our brain? Is our consciousness just a brief spark generated by complex meat? Or is it something more, something our brains merely tune into for our short time here? That is the mystery that remains.